Welcome to the Spinning Our Gears podcast. Before we begin, a quick reminder. All views, issues, and opinions are solely those of the hosts and their guests and do not reflect the opinions or positions of any department, agency, city, county, municipality, state, or country, or any other organization. This show is rated E for explicit. Listening and viewer discretion is highly advised. Spinning Our Gears is a law enforcement leadership and mental health podcast. We confront the issues and conversations others are afraid to deal with. Leadership failures, the culture within law enforcement, accountability, and the realities of life on and off the job. You can find us on YouTube, all of the major podcasting platforms and social media outlets, as well as online at spinningourgears.com. And now, without further fanfare, this is the Spinning Our Gears podcast.
Spinning our gears. Admin talks and broken plans, doing the best that we can. Jokes on shift, truth off mic, trying to live a normal life. Mental health ain't weakness, no, it's the stuff we learn as we go. Say it out loud, make it clear, this job don't own us here. So tune it in, don't disappear when it all gets heavy here. Real talk, real voices clear, spinning our gears, podcast is here.
Was there with my boss and told me, if you don't come back to work, I'm firing you. And I was like, I didn't say much at that meeting, but I just go, I don't think you can do that. And he's like, well, then you're going back to the street. And I go, I don't think you can do that either. And he told me, I said, look, they still didn't know the seriousness of my illness or what we thought it was. But I just said, look, I need to get this cardiac MRI, and I'm waiting for insurance to approve it. But they're not approving it. And he goes, then get a credit card. That's what they're for. I always remember that. So when I left work that day at 4 o'clock, I went straight to the fire station because my heart I thought I was dying right then.
Mm-hmm.
Go to the fire station, they hook me up, and they're like, push meds, ambulance is coming hot. They're like, she needs to get to the hospital right now. It was bad.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I'm not going. There's the stubbornness. And so
Well, but also what you just dealt with.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I actually got on the phone and called my doctor, and she's like, this is what you have to do. And I had medication at home. She's like, you go home, take this, whatever. Before I got into my garage, I got a call from City Hall and said, you're done. You cannot come to work until your doctor clears you. And I said,
That's what it should have been from day one.
I said, why? And they said, because what just happened at the fire station. I said, you can't know what happened at the fire station. I was not on duty. And she said, well, we talked to the city attorney, and they just thought that it was best that we could, talk about this, and you're home now until you can get cleared. So that led to the fastest retirement.
Sure. Doing what's right, but also doing it in the wrong way, it just makes me shake my head. And knowing what goes on in that city and that agency doesn't surprise me, but it's certainly, yeah. So, quickest retirement ever. I didn't realize it when it happened. I didn't see it, from that scope. I might have had blinders on, but looking back, you were definitely not treated like a brother or sister should have been treated during that time frame, or even, several years after that. When you live it and you breathe it and you believe in it, and then it all comes crashing down without the support system, what was going through your mind at that time frame? Just explain that to me. What was going on there?
Man, talk about feeling alone. When I went, so I had ended up in the Mayo Clinic, and when I was put on leave, I still had my whole investigative desk, right? They boxed up my stuff and gave my equipment away. And then accused me of stealing it later, which they didn't, because they good police officers at that agency told them where everything was. But I felt alone. I was locked out of the building. I was not allowed to come on site at all. There was a memo that was put out, don't contact her for anything. And it was because I kept raising a stink of how I was being treated. And I was like, this isn't right. This isn't how you treat your people. Like, I got something very serious going on. And they're like, well, if you don't tell us what it is. So it was just that whole process of just feeling alone, and then just, which increased the symptoms even worse. It was horrible. Like, I kept a journal every single day from October on. I had a journal of all my symptoms, what it felt like, because if I did die, I wanted, somebody to see that. And so I think the agency is probably going to change now. They have a chief in there who understands trauma and police officers, but back then they didn't. And I wasn't the first that they locked out. They locked several more out, I think, from my understanding after. And that's just not how you treat your people.
And understand, she says they have a chief in there now. That was 9 years ago, and it's been this chief just took over within the last 6 months. Yeah. So you're talking 9 years of continued doing things the wrong way. And she's not wrong. There have been multiple people that have been locked out, individuals that put in 3 weeks notice, but then went on vacation, and then before the 3 weeks was done, they were locked out. Look at me. When I put my 2 weeks in, I was taken. I was still training officers, but I was taken out of all of the report writing systems, all of the CAD systems. I couldn't access anything. So I'm training a new officer, but I can't do anything, electronically to further that, because they knew that I was on my way out, and I was, as the chief said, dead to them. And that happened for, that was the chief that succeeded, the chief that you talked about, but anyone that quit was dead to the department, and it was put out in a department-wide email before the person even left, knowing that you're dead to us. That's some of the things that officers went through that she's talking about that obviously add to the stress and I'll call it the heartbreak, right? You put your heart and your soul into it, and you're dead to them now. So. And
then you don't know what to do with your life.
Right. And that's what we're going to get now, because I guess we need to talk about the fact that you're a college professor, but was this the point where you started to really dive into Christ, or was it a little bit later on?
So I've always been a believer my whole life. I've never doubted in the Lord at all. Someone once said to me, and he was a very young, I think he was like 20 years old, he said to me just last year, I was always a believer, but I wasn't saved. And I was like,
okay. Yeah.
Oh, that's perfect. That's exactly right. And so that was me. I will tell you that during that retirement is when it all started. I've always had Bibles around my house. I went to church, but I never really dove into it. And so when retirement happened, and I'm like, okay, I have this ARVC. I'm going to leave my son without a mom. This is it. And I just broke down. I was in my room, broke down by myself, because I didn't want to share with others how stressed I was, because I didn't want them to hurt. And you just start crawling out to God. Help me, lead me, show me, guide me. And everything just changed from there. It wasn't, some people say it was like instant. It wasn't instant for me. Mm-mm. It was gradual. I was rough. I was stubborn. I was hard. I was angry. I was bitter. And it took years for that to just diminish and go away. So I kind of got into the church more, and I went to this one church for 6 years, and it was good, but I still was like, I am missing something. What am I missing? And I couldn't figure it out. And then I found the church that I'm at now, and we are just a Bible study in church. And I was like, that's what I was missing. I was missing the Bible. I wasn't reading it. And so I said, well, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to read it, which is easier said than done, right? Said, I'm going to start reading it, because there's a lot you don't understand. So I went to a friend and I said, I'm not understanding some of this. And they said, push through. It will make sense when God wants it to make sense for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it is. It's still a process today, every day. But it was like, the more I read, the more I prayed, the better my life was.
Yeah.
I started to see all those symptoms of the trauma go away. and just all the happiness and joy come back into my life where I don't even know where that was for so many years.
And I think similarly to you, same way. Since a child, I had the religion there, prayed every day. I didn't know what it was like to have a relationship.
Yes.
That was the issue. I've heard it referred to as drive-through Jesus, where I'm sending up prayers, but there's no relationship there. And every time I would hear someone talk about it, I always thought it was fake. There's not a physical thing there for me to have a relationship with, so it's not possible. And like you said, I would listen to the Bible, I would listen to an audio recording of it, but I wouldn't actually dive into it, wasn't studying it, and I think that was a big part of where the breakdown was. And like you said, it's not an instantaneous, for some people it happens immediately, but if you're building a relationship, who do you know that you were instantly in love with or you were instantly best friends with? It doesn't happen. It takes time. You have to have that connection and that back and forth and the Bible study before you get there, before you have that relationship. And, for anyone listening who's like me or who was like Andrea and going through that, understand that it's possible. It's there. It just takes time.
Yeah. And it's neat when you look back, and I cringe. I don't know about you, but I cringe when I was like, oh, I can't believe I did that back then. Or, oh, I can't believe I used to listen to that music. And because it's changed my whole life. I'm like, whoa. But it's kind of neat because then you really identify it when other people are doing it and say, this is where they are, but look at where they're going. This is fun to watch. And I love it.
So just to take a real quick little back step here before we jump into that part of it. Post law enforcement, you get into becoming a college professor. You got your degree, and you started off with a community college here in the area. I'm curious to know, you said that you were an FTO, but I know that in our agency, if you wanted to make advancement, you had to be an FTO. I love training new people. From the outside looking in, I never saw that from you. I didn't realize that was something you enjoyed doing. Was the training and the teaching always something you had a passion for, or was it something that you kind of got moving forward?
So originally, in high school when you play sports and you have senior day and they're like, you have to announce where you're going to go to college and what you want to do with your life.
Right.
And I always said teacher. It was
Okay.
always teacher. And I remember back in school, they made me take this test to what career is going to best fit you. And I was like, teacher. It's going to be teacher. And it kept saying police officer. I'm like, nope, I don't want to be police. Take it again. Take it again. Take it again. And so that's what originally I wanted to start college for, was to be a teacher. And then I actually did a ride along, and of course we drove really fast, and I was like, this is pretty cool. And I became a cop. But then when I got out, I'm like, I knew when I started college in that October of 16, that was my long-term goal. I said, I want to teach this. And so, was it a plan? No, but it's kind of weird that I started it wanting teaching, went to law enforcement, now I'm back at teaching.
And I think that's the full circle part of it, where you said, because maybe you didn't pick up on it, but you said about 20 minutes ago, you decided you were going to get a degree, and you didn't know why. You just felt like you need to get a degree, right? I think this is where you get into the God putting you where you need to be when you need to be there. You needed the experience of law enforcement before you can go out and be a great teacher. Have you seen that since then, or is it just kind of in the background?
Well, yeah, that is exactly what happened. And I actually, when I tell people, like, some people hear an audible voice or they say God's talking to me. I don't. I'll be sitting somewhere. This is how, let me tell you how I enrolled in college. I was sitting at the detective bureau, and it was during lunch. And I go, I should enroll in college. And I got online and literally. And so the same thing happened. I'm getting my doctorate now at Liberty University. And I was driving out, I was teaching out in Monticello. And on the way out, I go, I should get my doctorate. And then I always got to the school about an hour early just to prep the classroom, and I applied for college. And so, yeah, people ask me, even in every class that I start, they're like, what are you getting your degree for? I don't know. God will tell me. I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm very much in the same boat. I've never heard voices, but for me, it's been in the scripture where I've had something going on and I've thrown a question up there or just turned to a random page and the answer is sitting right there in front of me. And it just kind of, when you look at things from a full picture perspective and a point of view, it's amazing what you can see that he was in play the entire time. You didn't see it then, you were going through it back then, but he was in play the entire time to get you where you need to be at.
Absolutely. I had to go through, even going back to my childhood, the experiences I had there, into law enforcement, even my divorce. All of these things come into play to get me to where God wants me to be. And so without those experiences, he knows what he's doing, right?
Right. Well, and then that moves to the discipleship and the spreading the word. And that's, kind of where we're at now, and why I really, really wanted to bring you on was you have started taking some big leaps into maybe saving someone, or maybe just pulling in the other, Christians in your life to have that camaraderie and that discipleship and that church. You've joined the two different organizations now, and I'm just going to let you freestyle here and kind of go into that and what took place, how it happened, and where you're at now.
So last December, I guess it would have been a year ago now, I was prepping my spring courses, and I said, I need to start an organization and I need to have a website. That's how I operate, right? So I went right to my office and I started creating. And so I started Education and Resilience for Criminal Justice Professionals. And my idea was, I love teaching so much, and I think it's so important that we reach the first responders before they actually get in the field. And so I'm big on teaching trauma and resilience, and I wanted to reach that younger generation, but I also love the curriculum. Like, I just love teaching the law and the Constitution. So I was like, so I started this tutoring.
Another quick break from your boy Turk. Wanted to talk about Imposters on the Throne, Warriors in the Shadows, Exposing Poor Leadership Tactics During Tough Times. It's the book that I wrote, and right now it is on Amazon for the cheapest price that it's ever been. This promotion is going to be ending here soon, so I highly suggest you hop on Amazon, buy the book now, because prices are going to be going up. But book 2 is currently in the works, so you got to get yourself this thing, read it, and get prepared for book 2. It's coming your way sooner rather than later. I got a life, a lot of things going on. It will be done soon, though, I promise. All right. Hey, yeah, that's it. Back to the show.
And the same year, I went to a conference because the school was still letting me go to trainings. And that conference was like any other cop conference you go to. Where's the hospitality room? What are we doing tonight? We're getting drunk. We're doing this and that and the other. And I went to the hospitality room, and there's alcohol everywhere, and people are hammered, and they're like, come on, you want a drink? I said, no, that's okay. And I ended up leaving, and that's fine. I probably had homework anyway. And I left there and I said, we need a conference that, like, it just revolves around Jesus. We can talk about our traumas, our troubles, but then just pray together. And before that, I probably should back up, is I did join this amazing organization called Mission First Alliance. And I don't even know, we kind of laugh now because I think I found him on LinkedIn, and I was kind of following, his name's Jeremy Wade on LinkedIn, his wife's Katrina, they're the founders. And then Jeremy had reached out to me and said, I think you'd be a great fit for our alliance. Do you want to join? And I was like, yeah, I don't even know really what it is, but sure. And we hold meetings twice, 2 Mondays a month, where we just get on Zoom, and Jeremy, the foundation's, or the organization's amazing. It basically brings first responders together from around the nation. So around the world, because we actually have people in South Africa, Australia.
That's awesome.
Canada. And so it brings people from first responders from around the world to unite and then just love on Jesus and love on each other. But there are a lot of organizations, and so we're constantly collaborating. It's just, and Jeremy's like a network guru. He'll see you and go, hey, I need you to talk to this person. I think you can do something good together. I don't know what it is, but we're going to connect you. And so I've been with them now for, I don't know, a year and a half or so, maybe. And I'm one of their regional reps here in Iowa. So it's just, I go out and I share what it is, and I try to get people to join. It's amazing. Like, I'm going to meet with somebody in North Carolina here on Zoom this next week to help him through a process that he's trying to get started that I have done. And he needs help. And Jeremy recognized that. Actually, I think it was Marcus, who's part of the organization, said, hey, I'm going to put you in touch with Andrea. She's done this before. And so it's really good. They launched a podcast. We're going to start having Bible studies, and they have an amazing national conference down in Tennessee, where it was hands down the best conference I've ever been to. He let me lead a breakout session on trauma, and how to use the Bible, and how to get Jesus in your boat before you need him in your boat. Um, and it was a conference full of worship. Like, we had worship before, and then we had prayer, and then we'd pray with each other. Not one time in that conference did I see a phone.
That's
Nobody
awesome.
was on the phone. What I saw on was people's Bibles. That's what I saw on their tables. And I was like, holy, we need that here. Because our area seems pretty dark and pretty heavy. And so I said, we need something like that. So I said, Jeremy, what do you got? Can you help me put this together? So again, put me in touch with the right people, and we put together the Strength and Faith Conference. Because what I was trying to say is, when you think you're weak, you have nowhere else to go, you can find your strength in your faith. And so I had no idea what I was doing. I called my buddy Willie Dobbs, who you probably know, and I said, because he had shared some stories with me, and I said, hey, I want to do this conference. What do you think? He's like, well, I think it's a great idea. I go, cool. I need you to speak. That was totally how it went. He's like, well, okay. Well, then as time went on, I called him back. I was like, hey, do you think your son would talk? Because his son was one of my students. And I said it would be neat to get that perspective, because I'm thinking back to my child and the things that he went through. And he's like, I don't know. I go, let me call him. So I call him and get him on board. So then I go, I got another idea. So I call him back. And these aren't my ideas. This is God working through me. I said, what about your therapist? Can we bring her on? And I don't know if you worked with her or not, but she was one of our dispatchers, and she went back to school, and she's an amazing therapist for first responders. And he's like, well, yeah, I'll run it by her. And she's like, heck yeah, we just need to do the waivers and all that. And then I called him back. I was like, all right, last time, what about your pastor? Can we get your pastor here? And so we had an amazing panel of him, his son, his pastor, and his therapist to say, look, these are the people that God put in your life to overcome the things that you have experienced. And sometimes it's not just one person. It's like taking a step back and saying, wow,
Yeah.
this is pretty cool.
So much to break down there. So I love the idea of this organization, and especially your conference, because I'm a firm believer that church is needed, and you should attend church. But I'm also a firm believer that it's not necessarily required, especially to have that relationship, because like the Bible says, we are His church, right? So when you've got just a crazy lifestyle like many first responders do, when going to church is going to mean impacting your sleep and doing the mental health thing, maybe having the support group around you is very, very important. And the church can be that, right? You can do Bible study with your peer support group. You talked about Naomi. We have to get her on the show because, again, another example of God doing something for you without you realizing it. She left the agency and came back a short time later. She was the therapist for everyone on shift without them realizing it. There would be 20, 30-minute times where people would go into dispatch and talk because she was getting people through things maybe that she didn't even realize at the time. So absolutely wonderful person, like you said. I think the only thing that kind of sucks is because of that close relationship, some of us can't go to her as a therapist with the background, but she was definitely working, or God was working through her at the agency for a very long time.
Yeah, she's amazing, and the work she's doing is amazing.
So then you put this conference on, which I'm I wanted to go. The backstory here is that I was sick as a dog and barely getting out of bed. I told my wife, who you happen to know, another crazy small world, right? Andrea knows my wife from not law enforcement, but I told her that I felt bad. Like, if I was putting on a conference and it was the first year, I would hate to see empty seats there. But I also told her I have faith that this thing is going to work out and that I'm going to have another opportunity to go again. Let everyone know how the conference went, how things are moving along. Year 2's coming up here already, so let everyone know about that.
It was kind of stressful because I didn't know. I'm not a big person to go ask for money. The advertising was difficult. I didn't know how to do that. How do we get the word out? But then also people who knew me before I had the relationship with Jesus, right? So they're looking at old Andrea.
Yes.
And that's what they're seeing. And I think that's why a lot of people didn't come. And that's fine, because once they see it's not about me, it's about the Lord, then they'll understand what the purpose of this conference. So I was worried, like, okay, we have to have a cutoff number. Is it 50? If we don't get 50, we don't have it. Is it? And so I went to my pastor. My pastor was amazing. He let us have it at our church. And he said, look, ministering to people is no different if it's one person or 100 people. And I always think back to another person telling me, imagine that we're all caught up and the rapture occurs, but right before that, you were able to save one last person. Is it worth it?
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Okay, full force head. I don't care what we're doing. We're going to have it. I don't care if we have 2 people there. We're having it. So I talked to the speakers that we got in, and I said, "Are y'all on board? I don't know what's gonna happen. Are you okay?" And they're like, "Yep, we love it." And so we ended up having it, and we had about 65 people the first year, which I think perfect, because the speakers that we had said they needed it. It was the first time 2 of our speakers ever spoke about, actually probably 3 of them, ever spoke about what they went through. And they said, what an amazing experience. Like, I needed that and I didn't know I needed that. And so that was worth it. But even just, and I don't know if we're ready to go there yet, but even one of the other organizations that I brought in for that conference was pretty cool.
Talk on it. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, to back up, I don't know if he was there or not, but Bill Graham down in Baton Rouge, he was our chaplain at our police department for a long time. Did we really know it? I don't know, because it wasn't made known. Now, I knew him because I went through the academy together with him. So he was Baton Rouge, and then he came up here, and he was a full-time pastor and a reserve officer, and then he went back down, and he's finishing out his career in Baton Rouge. But he came up and spoke about being a chaplain for a major department, having a son-in-law, being at that department as well, but also now being the chaplain for his son-in-law who was involved in a officer-involved shooting, and just the complexity of that. But back last fall, when I was at the Mission First Alliance National Conference, I was sitting in my hotel room and I thought, I cannot be the only person who wants this in Iowa. I can't be. So I just started Googling stuff, and I came across 1042 Project. And it was like everything that I had wanted to do through my organization was what this project talked about. It was faith-based, because mine's faith-based, because I don't think you can overcome a lot of this stuff without your faith in Jesus. It was trauma. He'd experienced it. He went through medical retirement, and I'm like, he went through divorce. So I picked up the phone and I called him, and voicemail. And so then when he called me back, voicemail. It kept happening, and we're like, what in the world? So finally he calls me one day. I'm at work, and I'm just like, lunch, and I go out and I listen to him or have a conversation with him, and our stories are so similar. He experienced a lot that I didn't, but they're very, very similar. We both retired with trauma heart. I thought I was the only one in Iowa with trauma heart, and he retired with trauma heart as well. And his experiences were just, it's amazing, because I know he had major struggles, but to see where he is today. And so I said, we talked about the conference. He's like, well, I support you 100%. You know, I asked if I could put his logo on there as a supporter. He's like, yeah. And I was like, well, hey, do you want to talk? And he's like, sure. And so he ended up talking and telling his story, but I had called him up on stage after, like, before the conference was over, and I said, we in law enforcement tend to be, and you touched on it earlier, but with the females, but I think as a whole, really competitive. Like,
yes,
who's going to be the best speaker? Who's going to be on, whatever. I said, I don't want to do that. And Daniel, it's Daniel Deffenbaugh from 1042 Project. And I said, we had talked already before. I said, I don't want to do that. I absolutely don't there's no point in reinventing the wheel. We both want to do this. I said, I want to join forces with you, and I want to put this conference on with you next year. And he's like, yes, absolutely. And so we've already committed to putting that conference on to get an annual event every year with us. And then I told him, I said, here's the thing. I don't know why I started education and resilience. I don't know why. God led me to do that, and I did, but it also led me to you. And I want to join forces. And so I came on board as an ambassador with 1042. So I respond to the trauma calls. If somebody calls in and needs somebody, we'll go out and respond, right? So we want to equip them. Restore and repurpose are the three pillars. And so I've done that, but now through talks and conversations, we have a lot of plans, and we can't really talk about them yet, but they are going to be, we are expanding, and it's going to be cool. And so keep your eye on 1042 Project out of Des Moines. It's going to be really cool.
And I think why this is so important and why it's so cool is that, Andrea kind of talked about this before, all of the COP conferences that you go to, there's two things that always seem to be important to the people that are there. It's when is lunch, where are we eating, and then what are we doing afterwards. But then something else that I've always seen, especially during those, lunch breaks or the class itself, or even afterwards when people are getting together, is it's the war stories that are being told with no purpose behind telling those stories. Whereas the conferences that you're putting on and the work you're doing with 1042 Project is telling those war stories to make the connection, but then having the backside of that to help fix the person and then to help create that relationship with Jesus, which is very cool.
Absolutely. And we saw it with the Mission First Alliance National Conference as well. I led the trauma breakout room, and so we went into small circles, and it was, look, tell a small portion of your trauma, but understand that trauma doesn't define you. Because we're all here because we love the Lord, and let's share how the Lord used that for good. And so that's really what we saw at that conference. And with 1042, we might share a little bit of our story, but what you're going to hear most is how Jesus changed our lives and how he restored us and made us new and made us whole when we were broken. And it's just amazing. And I think we need more of that. And what is amazing with 1042 is they're in the academy. So they're teaching in the academy, and they're doing exactly what needs to be done, getting to those first responders before they're experiencing all the trauma, but also sharing Jesus. They have Bible studies. And they're not ashamed of being a faith-based organization. It doesn't mean that if you're not a person of faith that we're not going to respond to you. We're going to meet you where you are. And we're going to help you get the resources you need, whether that's therapy or just a person to talk to, need help retiring, filling out paperwork, whatever it is. But we're strong love for the Lord.
And we need this more and more because you touched on Bill Graham. It seems like the religion is viewed as so taboo in law enforcement, which is so crazy that people would think that when there's so many connections. I was part of the group that brought the next chaplain in with the chief that you had to deal with, and it became very clear very quick that it was a check the box issue. Like, we're going to have a chaplain, this is who it's going to be, but then you never saw that person after that point. And it was very much on the officer to create their own small group with their peer support, to have that faith in the four walls that you're in. But this is why we need organizations like this and conferences like this. Do you know yet when your number 2 is going to kick off, when your conference is going to be?
I don't know. We're going to send out a kind of a survey to see what fits. Summer's never good.
Right.
We can't do winter in Iowa. Obvious. So we really like the fall. I think we might alternate locations. Des Moines, obviously, very central Iowa. Probably what we'll do. But, it's a work in progress, but it will happen.
Excellent.
We'll have it.
We will definitely be looking forward to it, and obviously we're going to blast it as much as we can on social media, because I do feel that it is something that is very, very important. Wouldn't have brought you on the show if I didn't feel that it was important. I think that you said there was about 65 people that showed up. I think if only 10 had showed up, it would have been a success. So yeah. I think that you're already, jumping what success looks like, and it's obviously only going to get bigger and better and impact more and more people. So very, very cool. I'm excited for you, and I can't wait for that to happen. As we kind of, I guess, put a bow on this one and wrap it up, is there anything that you want to put out there when it comes to the faith, or when it comes to female law enforcement, anything that you want to throw out to the people listening or watching this show?
I want the administrators of the agencies to understand the importance of recognizing the signs of trauma, but also allowing the faith-based side to come in. The research shows that the people that have faith, strong faith in something, but spiritually, are more likely to overcome what they experience. And so I want the agencies to think that, but also the police officers in general. Like I think of a Facebook group that I'm involved in for law enforcement around the nation, and they're just ripping each other apart. And I'm like, aren't we supposed to be building each other up? And if you go in there and say anything to build somebody up, they rip you apart. And so just we as law enforcement need to be better as a whole of just being the support. But again, some of that's signs of trauma.
Yes.
Females, we're always taught to suppress our emotions. Like, girls are always emotional. They always cry. Look, going to a call where somebody dies is sad. And I don't think that showing some emotion is bad. You obviously have to keep your composure and handle the call. The problem is when we continue to suppress our emotions so much at work, it carries on into our personal life, and then we suppress our emotions in our personal life, and then it leads to destruction. And so I would say, and you had mentioned it, find your network, find your community, whether that's the church. You don't have to go to church because we are the church, but dive into the word, pray, have a healthy prayer life. The first thing you do when you wake up, tell God how grateful you are for everything that you have. And the last thing that you do before you go to bed, same thing. Always give thanks to the Lord, because he's the one that walked with us through this journey to put us where we are today.
And I keep hitting on it, that relationship part of it. For me, when I jumped in, it was the morning and the before I went to bed. I made it a point to set an alarm on my clock so that in the middle of the day, when that alarm goes off, I know that it's time. Even if it's been a busy day and I don't even know where I'm at that time, it's time to take a break and just talk, whether it be praise, whether it be asking for things, or just talk a little bit, because that's how you build that relationship. It's that time, the time over time where you're spending with him and building things up and getting more comfortable. And then when you put the other part of that in with that scripture, with reading the Bible, I would say find an actual study guide for the Bible. Find a journal that you can write into. I've got a great one that I used. You start to pick up more and more, and you start to realize, hey, I talked to him in the morning about this thing. From between then and now, this is what where he was guiding me, what he was trying to tell me. So give it time, but you also have to put the effort in and try to build that relationship up, because the sky's the limit at that point.
Yeah, build that relationship up and then go out and be the light to others.
Yes.
Any situation you're in, you can be the light for somebody. Whether it's pumping gas at the gas station or, wherever you are, you can be the light for somebody. And what you say to them, somebody actually in my Mission First Alliance group just said this the other day, you might be the only Bible they read. So do what you can.
They see his work through you. And so even though this person might not be ready to pick up a Bible, you holding the door and giving them a compliment on the way in is that thing that might change their day, that could snowball into their whole life. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because I had started a second show that I was going to do strictly towards faith, and I was concerned that I didn't know enough, that I wasn't an expert matter in it, and so I canceled that one. There were some technical issues with this one, and I'd thought about possibly closing this one down, and I had a coworker that asked me, have you ever thought about, centering more towards God on that show? And I was like, well, funny story, this is what's going on. And so from that point on, I knew that I have been called at this point. We will continue to talk about leadership and mental health, and we're going to continue to complain like we like to do, but we are going to back that up with Christianity, with God, with religion, because I think that it is important to have that positive at the end of the negative. And I think it's important to spread the word as much as we can.
Absolutely, and I love it. I'm proud of you.
Thank you. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of what you're doing.
Thank you.
Say this about every episode. I'm great at opening, but I don't know how to close. I think we've reached that point, though. It's been an excellent episode. I think we've talked about a lot of good stuff. I don't know if this is going to be a one-parter or a two-parter just based on the time frame, but I cannot thank you enough for having you on, telling your story, putting that all out there. It's always hard to have a conversation for an hour about some of these things, but it was an excellent episode. I really hope that someone pulled something out of it that they're going to be able to benefit with. As I close this out, I ask that you do something good for your fellow man or woman. It does not have to be big, like we talked about. It could just be pumping their gas, opening the door for them, giving them a compliment. Do something good this week, this month, because we're going to change this world one person at a time. That's it. That's all we got. Stay safe, warriors. We'll get through this together.
Admin talks and broken plans, doing the best that we can. Jokes on shift, truth off mic, trying to live a normal life. Mental health ain't weakness, no, it's the stuff we learn as we go. Say it out loud, make it clear, this job don't own us here. So tune it in, don't disappear when it all gets heavy here. Real talk, real voices clear, spinning our gears, but chest is it's spinning our gears.